Welcome to A Course in Business Miracles. This is Heather Dominick, creator of businessmiracles.com and founder and leader of the highly sensitive entrepreneur movement. Join me today for some genuine practical assistance and a business-altering and life-changing experience, a business miracle. This is A Course in Business Miracles, episode 43, HSE Coping Mechanisms. Listen in to learn which HSE coping mechanism you default to and how to keep it from affecting not only your income, but your relationships, health, and overall well-being. The coping mechanisms, the HSE coping mechanisms, is that you tend to either be a pusher, which means that you have to push yourself to operate like the other 80% of the world, and you will do it come hell or high water, but it will cost you. And it usually costs in health and in relationships. Right? And I know that was definitely me, especially when I first started out in business. I would go anywhere and everywhere, and I would do whatever it is that I needed to do. I would go to 3 networking events in a day. I would book speaking engagements back to back. I would be zooming around New York City in cabs, and then I would be flat on my back for days with a migraine headache. And I just did that over and over and over again. Or you tend to be a hider. And the idea of the way that the 80% operates is just like so, just even the thought of it is like overwhelming and scary. So you know that it would probably make sense to go to a networking event. It would probably make sense to connect with other people who are all about referring business. But suddenly, you really have to hem your wedding dress from 20 years ago, just in case maybe you might need it for a Halloween party next year. Or something else just as important. Or more so, what it really shows up for as hiders is how they take care of everyone and everything else around them first. The children need to be brought to soccer. The dog needs to be fed. The husband's shirt needs to be ironed. The parents need to be driven to the doctors. The neighbor needs to have her toenails clipped. And it really needs to be you to do it. And oh, look at that. I just didn't get to writing my newsletter again. I just can't. I have too many things to do. People need me. Or you tend to be a combo platter, which means you waver back and forth between the two. And that doesn't mean that you're a pusher like I described earlier and then you crash. Crashing is just part of being a pusher. The combo platter is that it's, literally it's like one day you're like, oh my gosh, okay, this is great. I'm going to put together this speaking engagement. I'm going to call all these people and you maybe do 15 speaking inquiries in one day. And then the next day, you're just doing the dishes all day long, right? And you're like, wow, look at that china. I didn't realize that really needs to be washed today. And then the next day you're back at it, and then you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make up this whole curriculum, and you work that out, and then the day after that you're changing all of the curtains in your house. And to me, actually, none of them is really healthy or valuable in any way, but the combo platter just really seems to be crazy making, right? If that happens to be you. So whether you tend towards pushing or hiding or the combo platter, all impacts how you interact with your superego voice. So for a pusher, the interaction and the relationship with your super ego voice is that it tends to be very frantic. It's like you're trying to outrun the super ego voice. If I can just be busy enough, then the super ego voice will leave me alone. But no matter how fast you run, no matter how many things you pile on, that super ego voice just still shows up. And where does it tend to show up? Somewhere often like in the middle of the night. There you are, like just up at 3 a.m. The other way that the superego voice gets your attention is it injures you or makes you sick. And the way that the superego voice plays out for pushers is anger turned outwards. Very angry at other people. It's somebody else's fault. It also shows up as being a rebel, right? You can't make me. I am not going to do that. I don't care what you say in terms, I know I asked you what I need in order to be able to have more clients, but screw you, I'm not doing it. Also, for pushers, the superego voice shows up and feeling very hurt. And you're hurt because you can't believe that other people don't see how hard you're working. Why are you not being crowned Miss HSE? Can't they see what I'm doing? Can't they see how hard I'm working here? The superego voice for pushers shows up around training retreats with the message of, prove it to me. Prove it to me. Prove it to me, Heather. For hiders, the superego voice takes anger and it implodes it. Again, it shows up in avoidance. Hiders tend to be rule followers, really good girls. They'll do for others before themselves. They need to be in control as part of creating that safety. And for hiders, there is a lot of fear. So whether you're a pusher or a hider, it's important that we each learn how to best recognize and then deal with the superego voice. And that's all to really stay out of the HSE shadows, and again, of that self-judgment and that self-criticism, and then ultimately the self-abandonment. Because the superego voice is the voice that tells you that you can't do it. So however it is that that's showing up, that's the superego voice. Oh, the other piece that I forgot to mention in terms of hider, how the superego shows up a lot, is in being confused. I don't know what my message is. I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what my focus is. And I can't do anything until I know. And so one of the things that I always say to hiders around that is that the knowing will come through the doing. But that requires you to be willing to not be perfect. Bottom line, the superego voice is the destructive voice of your business. It is the part of you that is always taking you out. And however it shows up, again, whether you're a pusher or a hider or a combo platter. And again, we all have a superego voice. It's just about how we relate to it. So I would like you to take a moment, and with this information in mind, to think of a moment when your superego voice was active. It's what I refer to as a superego voice incident. And it might have happened today, it might have happened last week, it might have happened a month ago, it might have happened a year ago, but I encourage you not really to go far back, not to go far back to your childhood, but just think more of literally more recent present. And again, it's a judgment or attack moment. And it can sort of be hard to connect into because for a lot of us, it's just become like so natural that we can't even necessarily like distinguish, right? But just even think like just a moment where you were really being judged, you were really being attacked in here, where like the superego just like egged you on into your resistance, right? Or egged you on to not do something, right? Again, maybe something that you knew would really be valuable for you to do for your business, but the ego voice just came in there and just told you like, you just don't really need to do it. So for example, it might be like a networking event, right? And again, that would be really valuable, but you like just don't want to go. And so you can hear in the superego voice is, you know what? You can't effectively network. You know what? People are going to think what you say is just really stupid. You know what? You don't even really have your message together. You know what? You should really just stay home. That might be an example. For a lot of you, the practice of energy management that I teach, and that's a great place where the superego voice shows up. You don't really need to do that energy management. How's that really going to help? It's not really going to make a difference. You know what? Just check your email. It might be picking up the phone and calling a prospect. Maybe a prospect didn't show. And you really know that it could be valuable to pick up the phone, but the superego voice says, you know what? They'll think you're really pushy. You know what? You'll come across as rude. They're going to think you're desperate. And so you don't pick up the phone. So what is a superego voice incident for you? So take a moment, connect in, and come up with that superego voice incident. And just write it down in your journal. And if you're having difficulty connecting into the voice, then just a moment when you just resisted doing something for your business. And if you can connect in to what the ego voice was saying to you, the superego voice in that moment, then please write that down. And just start to wrap up if you're still writing. Take a deep breath in, deep breath. And let it out. So just as a reminder, if you're thinking right now, why are you doing this, Heather? This is a terrible mirror to hold up. Why are you making me look at this? Just a reminder that the reason why is exactly as the course says, which is because the aim of all defenses is to keep the truth from being whole. And that as HSEs, our shared journey, our shared purpose is freedom. And freedom isn't going to come from more information, more worksheets, and freedom isn't going to come from just an intellectual understanding. In order to experience that freedom, we must be willing to go through. Or as I like to say, be willing to do the real work.
Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of A Course in Business Miracles. If you're ready to learn how to use your highly sensitive abilities to support you in being purposeful, profitable, and empowered rather than scattered, poor, and undervalued, take my free self-quiz to find out if you are indeed a highly sensitive entrepreneur. And if you are, along with your quiz results, you'll receive my free HSE Success Guide, which will teach you how to have your highly sensitive abilities working for you to create the results you desire in your business. Take the quiz and receive your free success guide now at www.hsequiz.com.